everyone, and welcome to the Chess Problem Challenge. Our first topic is checkmate with Rook. Let's start with the first problem. So in this problem, the white king is on e6, the black king is on e8, and the white rook is on a1. You're welcome to pause now and find the best move for white with the white rook to do checkmate to the black king. Great. So let's look at this position closely. The black king is on e8 and cannot move down because the white king on e6 is stopping from the king escape. The only squares that the black king can move on to are on its left and right, so d8 and f8. By moving the rook from a1 to a8, you basically stop the king's escape routes and also attack the black king. Because the king has nowhere to go and is under attack, this is called checkmate. Great. Let's move on to our second problem. In problem number 2, we have the king on c7, the black king on a8, and the white rook on h1. You're welcome to pause now to find the right solution. Okay, let's look at this position closely. The black king is on the corner at a8. The white king is stopping from the black king from moving to the right, so to squares b8 or b7, because that will be too close to the white king. So the only escape route is to move the black king down to a7. Now let's look at the white rook. The white rook can attack the king in two ways. It could go all the way up to h8, or it could go sideways all the way to a1. Which one is right? Great. The only correct answer would be to move the white rook from h1 to a1. Because if we move the rook from h1 to h8, the black king can escape to a7. So that will be only a check and not checkmate. So by putting the rook to a1, you are not letting the black king go to a7. The black king cannot go to the right to b8 or b7 because of the white king, and the black king is attacked. This is checkmate. Great. Let's move on to problem number 3. In problem number 3, we have the white king on g1, the white rook on c7, the other white rook is on f1, and the black king is in the corner at a8. You're welcome to pause now to figure out the right answer. Okay, let's look at this position. The black king on a8 is not able to go down because of the white rook on c7. That's why if we use this rook to attack the black king to c8, for example, it's not gonna work because then the escape route opens up and the black king would escape. But in this position we have a second rook, which is all the way on f1. It also has different ways to attack the black king. It could go sideways to a1, but that is not going to be checkmate because the black king can escape to b8 and that will be just a check. The right way would be to take the f1 rook and put it all the way up to f8. This way you're blocking the b8 square, you're attacking the black king at a8, and your other rook on c7 is blocking the black king from escaping to the 7th line, so to a7 or b7. And this is checkmate. Great. Let's move on to problem number 4. In this problem, the white king is on g1, the white rook is on a1, the black king is on g8, and the black pawns are on f7, g7, and h7. You're welcome to pause now and to figure out the right way to do checkmate. Okay, let's take a look. So we have the black king on g8, and in this position, its own pawns on f7, g7, h7 are preventing the black king from escaping to the 7th line. So if you have moved your rook all the way up to a8 to attack the black king, this would be checkmate because the black king cannot go left or right to f8 or h8 because the white rook blocks the whole line. Awesome. Let's get to problem number 5. In problem number 5, we have the white king on g1. We have the white rook on a3. We have the other white rook on a8. We have the black pawns on g7 and g6 and the black king on h7. You're welcome to pause now to find the right solution. Okay, so in this position we have two ways to attack the black king. We could go to the corner here with this rook, but even though the black king is under attack and cannot go anywhere, it could still eat the attacking rook. So this will not be good because it's not going to end in checkmate but in a loss of a rook because the rook came too close without protection to the king. Okay, let's put it back. Now if you put this rook to h3, it's far away from the king. The king is under attack. It's not able to move to the g file because of the pawns on g7 and g6 and cannot even escape to g8 because of the other rook. And the whole h file is attacked by the rook on h3. So this is checkmate. Great. Let's move on to problem number 6. In problem number 6, we have the white king on g1, king on g1, the rook on g2, the knight on f6, and the black king on h8. You could pause now to figure out the right answer. Good. Now, if you look at the white rook, there is only two ways to attack. you could go sideways to h2, but let's take a look what happens here. Is this checkmate? The king cannot go to g8 because of the knight at f6. The king cannot go down because of the knight and rook, but the king can escape to g7. So this would only end up in a check and not checkmate. So let's put the move back and try the other way. Now the rook, if the rook goes all the way up, even though it's close to the black king, the king cannot take the rook, because the knight then would be attacking the king. So because the rook is defended by the knight, this is checkmate, because the king cannot escape to any of the squares. If he goes down, the knight is attacking the h7 square. If he goes diagonally, the rook is attacking the king on g7. So this is checkmate. Thank you for our first video. Stay tuned for the next one. Take care.